Good job. All right, let's bring Dave back up. Dave Lakhani, he was up here a little bit earlier for you. He is actually going to step in for one of the previously scheduled speakers who could not make it tonight. Dave Lakhani is considered the nation's most recognizable expert on applied persuasion and the intersection of human influence, sales, and marketing. He's an award-winning entrepreneur, author, and speaker who has spoken to more than 3 million people in 126 countries around the world over the past decade. He's the founder of Bold Approach, Inc., an applied persuasion and business growth consultancy, and co-founder of Growth Foundry, a digital marketing agency focusing on healthcare, natural health, and the celebrity brands supporting those industries. Dave, would you like to make your way to the stage? Does he have a walk-up song right here?
But I know I got hard, put my feet right on the margin.
It's very exciting to have an opportunity to talk right here in Boise, Idaho. I don't get that opportunity too much, so it's really cool to be here and really cool to have this opportunity. So I got to Boise and I got to this stage probably the same way most of you got here, right? The same way you got to where you're at in your career, and the same way that you began your life. I was raised in a cult. From the time I was 6 until I was 16, I was raised in a very strict religious cult. They believed in an end-time prophet named William Branham. They believed he was the literal resurrection of Elijah from the Bible. Now, this was not a cult that was like, you just got to go to church a lot and that kind of thing. There was no education past 6th or 7th grade that was supposed to happen. Women had to be subservient to their husbands or corporal punishment was allowed. There was no listening to music, no going to the movies, no doing anything that wasn't allowed by the organization. Now that first picture I showed you, that wasn't the cult. That was actually the snake-handling, poison-drinking Pentecostal church that my mom joined right before the cult. So that's what we did before we moved here. Now, a lot of people think about this and they think, yeah, that's really funny, because this cult actually was in Greenleaf, Idaho. Just 35 miles from here, about 30 miles from here. So in this organization, as you might imagine, there was a tremendous amount of abuse, there was a tremendous amount of sexual abuse, there was a tremendous amount of just complete domination of people's mind, thinking, and way of being. And when we moved here to Idaho, we moved here to start the local organization. This is where we lived when we got here. Not the house in the back of the picture, but literally right here under this tree. This is in Caldwell, at the park in Caldwell. This is where we lived. And this is where we ate, like most people, the Albertsons. Not inside the Albertsons, though, outside the Albertsons, where they left the old rotting vegetables and the day-old donuts and the moldy bread. That's where we got our food for the first couple of years that I was here. And we started a church, and I'll bet this church looks a lot like yours. You see, we filled this church up. This is in Greenleaf, still there. We filled this church up with people Tuesdays, Thursdays, twice on Sundays. And the way we filled it up was we sent out little boys like me into places like Boise. I remember walking down Main Street many, many times, recruiting people. Now, try to imagine me as a 7-year-old boy. Black hair, big black eyes, walking down the street and seeing someone and saying to them, "You look like such a beautiful young lady. You look like somebody I'd love to have as my sister, somebody that I think would make a beautiful and great mother, somebody who probably is loved by your whole family. There's only one problem. You're going to hell, Jezebel, with your whorish makeup, your bobbed hair, your pants. You look like a man." Now, one of two things happen when you say that to women. This is the 70s, so you have to bear in mind. And you could about split it at 40 years old. Under 40, there was a very shocked look, like, what just happened? Like, I know something bad happened, I still can't process it. But it was bad, I know that. And so then they would say, "Where's your mom?" And I would say, "Oh, mom's over here, come with me." And that's when they got to meet mom. Mom was a closer. Now, over 40, the first thing that happened, can anybody imagine? you got a really stiff slap right across your face, and you got grabbed by the ear, and you got drug in the direction of any woman older than 40. That meant they found Mom. She was the closer. And that's how we filled up this church with 300 people in Greenleaf, Idaho. Now, the interesting part about this, it's very funny because another EO member joined and he saw me do a little bit of this talk. And you see on the far left-hand, on your right-hand side of this photo, there's this little loading ramp that goes down. This is a true story. When we got there, there was a black bear living inside of this ramp. There was chain link fence around it and a black bear living there. Nobody could actually say like why or where it came from, but it was clearly being fed and clearly being trapped inside of this cage. And so, they said, look, here's the deal. We'll take away your deposit if you can get rid of the black bear. He was delicious. And this is where we spent Tuesdays, Thursdays, Sundays, twice. Every year when New Year came around, we would go at about 5 o'clock in the evening and we'd start praying. And we would pray that the next year was going to come, that this was going to happen, that there would be another year, that there would be another thing for us. Now, when I was young, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, it never occurred to me that the earth wasn't falling off in time zones, right? Because it was already tomorrow in Australia. Nobody told me. So we prayed. When I was 16 years old, many things had happened, and I decided it was time to leave. I'd tried to hide this secret from my peers at school. I'd refused to not go to school, and I tried to hide as long as I could. But I realized that if I didn't change, if I didn't succumb to them, they were going to put so much pressure on my family that it would break them. And so I made a decision. It was time for me to go. I told my mom. She said, you have to go tell the minister and you have to tell the deacons. So Sunday, I walked in and I told them. They said, great. Laid their hands on me. Prayed to God that he would turn my soul over to Satan for the destruction of my flesh, that I would be killed for my transgression, excommunicate me from the church and my family. No longer able to talk to anybody that I knew in the church, no longer to have any contact with my family. And I walked away, packed everything that I had in the back of a 1970 Ford Falcon, and drove away. I knew in that moment something had to change, something had to be different. I couldn't take it anymore. Now, the interesting thing about this is, too, when I drove away, I had this weird idea that didn't show up like the minute I drove away. In fact, it was a few months later that I was going to die by the time I was 25. And it was like not until well after 25 that it occurred to me that that got implanted probably in my head at church that day, but it never occurred to me. I just thought I was going to die by the time I was 25. And I just decided I had to do something. Now, the question that always comes up, that people always have to ask is, why did your mom do this? Why did your mom raise you in this crazy way? Well, the answer is very simple. For her, she was looking for salvation. Salvation for her very soul, and also salvation for her sons. She was also looking for this ideal of everlasting life, that if she did something so stringent and so rigid and she followed all the rules, that we would be guaranteed happiness for the rest of our lives. And so, Mom chose this route. And here's the thing, my mom was more than a cultist. My mom was more than a woman that was great at converting people into coming to church for the first time. She was also a skilled accordion player. She was a great singer. She was an avid reader. And she loved her grandchildren more than anything in the world. But there was one thing. By all measures, she was relatively happy. But she was unfulfilled. She never was able to have that moment where she felt like she had reached what her possibility was, her sense of success, her sense of fulfillment. Or when we look at Maslow's hierarchy, the peak of success. In fact, my mom died when she was 51 years old. And when she died, she left all of those hopes and dreams behind her. When she died, I started thinking, but before that, really, when I was about 25, 24 years old, I was feeling this intense pressure of time. I realized that my time was coming, that I only had a little bit of time left. And I developed in that moment an ideology. I developed a way of thinking. I developed a way of being that said, anytime I'm faced with an opportunity, and the answer is yes or no, always, always choose yes. And so I said yes to everything. Whether it was good or it was bad, I said yes, and I went at it with full force. I didn't care how long it took me, how hard the work was, whatever it was, I just said yes. The result was a lot of interesting opportunities, but one thing I didn't learn was how to say no. Nobody taught me that I could say no because I thought I had to get it all in. So when I was getting far down a path and I realized this isn't for me, this isn't the thing, it wasn't what I hoped for, I would just keep doing until I was done because that's what I knew. Go until it's done. Walls are only obstacles meant to be overcome. So I pushed and I went and I went. But then I realized along the way somewhere, I could say no. I could just say no. I don't have to go down this path if I don't like it anymore because there's way more yeses left than there are nos. And that whole idea changed my life. It was around that same time that I heard about this idea from Mexican culture, and it's called the 3 deaths. It comes from the Day of the Dead. The first death, there's many different explanations of this, but this is the one I like. The first death is that moment that you become keenly aware of your own mortality. That moment when you recognize that you too will die, that your time on earth is limited. That's the first death. The second death is literal death. That moment when you cease breathing, your brain activity stops, you're lowered into the ground and you're covered up. But the third death, and this is the one that vexed me, it's the one that plagued me, the third death is the last time someone says your name. And I thought about that, and I thought, my God, I'll probably never get married. I'll probably never have children. My brothers will die. My cousins will die. And with them will be the last time someone says my name. And that got me on a path. I had to do something different. I had to do something different. And what I did different, and what you can all do tonight, is simply do this. Joseph Campbell has this quote that says, "The cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." We're all standing on a precipice. How many people here right now have said, I want to start a business, or I want to make a change, or I want a new job, or I want to do something different than you're doing right now? And how many of you have said, it's frightful, it's scary, I think I'll wait, I think I'll put it off? Right. We've all had those moments. It happens to all of us. But inside the cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. All you have to do is say yes. That's it. And then take the first step. If you'll say yes and take that first step right into the cave, you'll find your truth. You'll find yourself. You'll have this opportunity that you've always wanted, that you've always dreamed of. You won't end up like my mom without having your hopes and dreams fulfilled. Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying, but I don't have the right idea. I don't have the right opportunities. How many people in this room have ever, in your life, had a really great idea, didn't do anything with it, and then a year, 2 years, 10 years later, somebody, those bastards, they start your idea. In fact, they launch with it and they make $1 million, $1 billion with your idea. If you would have only taken that one little step and said yes and started walking down the path. Let me tell you right now, you've already had all the ideas you need. There's no right time. There's no good time. There's no perfect time. You've got ideas already. What you haven't done is taken a step. Now, I know we all like to watch the hustle porn on YouTube and on Instagram. Wake up and grind. Hustle and grind. By the way, I'm pretty sure if you wake up, hustle and grind in Idaho, that's still illegal and you go to jail. Just saying, if you take money for it, you might want to rethink that. You've got all the ideas you need. All you have to do is simply take a step. Take a step and do it. Stop dreaming and start doing. And that's my challenge to every single person here is stop dreaming and start doing. Do the things that are going to make the difference for you. Do the things that are going to allow you to have the opportunities that you've always imagined. Do the things that scare you to death, but hold the biggest opportunity. Because if you will do that, your life will change. It'll change in a single moment. It'll change in a single step. Stop dreaming and start doing. Wake up every morning a little bit earlier. But don't wake up every morning and read 20 pages in a book. Wake up and work on your plan. Use fearsome focus. 45 minutes of intense focus. Writing out your plan, thinking about what you want to do, writing down who you have to connect with. Do the things that are going to move you forward. Take the step. Get Amy's touch points if you're afraid. Hold those in your hands and walk powerfully into your future. Because if you will, you can have anything you want. There's never been a time, as you heard Mike say, better than now to start a business. The next best time than now will be never. The days that you don't do something are the days that you let your opportunity pass. Your ideas are waiting for you. They're waiting for you to be birthed. They're waiting for you to be acted on. But mostly, they're waiting on you to do something with. And finally, just say yes. Take the first step. Do the things that are most important to you. Say yes. Take that first step. That's all you have to do. See, it's very easy to say that we want to do something. It's much, much harder to just take the first step. That cave that you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. The last thing that I want to tell you is that my slides clearly have restarted. And that seems super cool. In fact, half of them are missing. So, guess what? The last slide said, create a culture. Create a culture of completion. Do the things that matter most. Get up every day and work on those things. Do the things that are going to change your life. Perfect. Do the things that are going to change your life. Do the things that allow you to finish what you start. See, I'm on the board of the Idaho Youth Ranch, and one of the things that we say when we help young children in Idaho, disadvantaged youth, is we say we finish the job. We start the job and we finish the job, and you have to finish the job on you. The only person left is you. The only person left to work on is you. Let's try something, because I want to share a quote with you from a person who I really admire, Henry Rollins. And this is what Henry Rollins has to say. He says this: no such thing as spare time. No such thing as free time. No such thing as downtime. All you've got is lifetime. Go. I hope every one of you will join me on an adventure, on a legacy, on a lifetime that leads you to doing the things that matter most, but most importantly, that leave it possible for everyone to say your name forever. Thank you.